What's up, future respiratory therapist? In this video, we're going to talk about the difference between an arterial blood gas versus a venous blood gas. You're not going to want to miss this. Let's dive in. All right, so as I said, ABG versus VBG in this video. Before we jump into that, do me a favor, head over to respiratorycoach.com, check out the TMC and CSE boot camps there to aid and assist you in passing those credentialing exams on the very first attempt. I would greatly appreciate it if you would do that for me. Now, ABG versus VBG. Now what I've done here is I've created several questions, and I'm going to read the questions to you, and then what we're going to do is dissect these questions to show you how clues in the stem of the question point you to things that you need to collect and then connect the dots so that you can make the appropriate decision when given answer options. Okay, so what we have here is a stem of a question. Now, first things first, when you're taking an exam, there is going to be a question. When we talk about the stem of the question, we're talking about all of the information before the question is actually asked. See, the question down here is what is your recommendation? That's the question. The stem of the question sets you up with all the information you need to be able to answer the question, okay? So while drawing an arterial blood gas on a 54-year-old male for preoperative baseline assessment, you observe very dark blood, slowly filling the syringe. The patient appears to be resting comfortably with no signs of distress. All vital signs are normal, including an SpO2 of 98% on room air. Here are your results. You got 7.35, 45 for your CO2, 35 for your PaO2, your bicarb is 24, and your SaO2 came back at 75%. Now, lots of red flags here, right? Like, wait a second, something doesn't match. And that's exactly what I want you to realize in this scenario, okay? Because the question is what is your recommendation? Do you want to provide supplemental oxygen? Probably not, right? Do you want to recalibrate the analyzer? Okay, I kind of like that answer. What about redraw the sample? Well, why would we redraw the sample? Well, we'll talk about that in a second. Or do you want to give albuterol? That's clearly not the answer, right? So what are we going to do? Do we need to recalibrate the analyzer, or do we need to redraw the sample? Well, what you have to do is go back and connect the dots. You see, when we go back to the stem of the question, we say, okay, what's happening here? This is an ABG draw for a 54-year-old male. Why are we doing the ABG? Because he's in distress? Because we suspect hypoxemia? No, we're drawing an arterial blood gas for preoperative baseline assessment. So we're getting a baseline blood gas prior to an operation or some type of surgical procedure. That's what we have going on here. Now, when I feel, so that right there tells you, like, okay, this does not sound like an emergency type respiratory distress, cardiopulmonary impairment problem, right? So right there, I'm not expecting to see a PaO2 of 35. That seems weird, right? So we draw the blood, it comes back very dark, and it fills slowly. Now, that right there, big clue and big dead giveaway of what's going on in this scenario. We know that if we, in an attempt to draw arterial blood, accidentally puncture a vein, then we will get venous blood. And what we know is that the blood coming out of the vein is going to come out at a much lower pressure than an artery. Arteries are high pressure, veins are low pressure. And so right there, it tells you, like, why is it feeling so slow? And why is it dark red? And that is because it's deoxygenated blood coming from a low pressure vein. That's how we know it's a VBG. We also see that the patient appears to be resting comfortably, no signs of distress. All vital signs are normal. Would a patient who had a PaO2 of 35 that was legit, would they have normal vital signs? Absolutely not. They'd be tachycardic, they'd be tachypnic, they would be in some sort of distress most likely. And they give us an SpO2 of 98% on room air. Now that's important because when we get a saturation of 98%, we are expecting a normal PaO2 value. And then we come back with a PaO2 of 35. Now the answer to this question is redraw the sample and this time get arterial blood, because what happened is, once again, we got venous blood, okay? And so we know that blood in the venous system, venous blood gases are going to have lower levels of oxygen and higher levels of CO2. Why? Because the arterial blood carries the oxygen out to the tissues consume the oxygen, produce CO2, and the blood comes back through the venous system. Higher CO2, lower O2 in a venous blood gas. And so this is a normal venous blood gas. Nothing abnormal about it, okay? We just got to redraw and get our arterial sample so we can get that baseline. Now, let's look at another example. The answers here are going to be the exact same, because what I want to show you is how would we make some of these other answers the correct answer, okay? So this one, we drew a venous blood gas. Now we're going to do something a little different here. While drawing an arterial blood gas on a 54-year-old male for preoperative baseline assessment, are you like, didn't we just read this? It's a little different. Hold on just a second. You observe bright red blood quickly filling the syringe. Different. Dark red filling slow, I'm thinking venous. Now I've got bright red filling quickly. I'm thinking, okay, this is an arterial sample here, right? The patient appears to be resting comfortably, no signs of distress, all vital signs are normal, including SpO2 of 98% on room air. Again, no distress, no suspected cardiopulmonary impairments. For the reason for getting the blood gas, we're getting it to establish a preoperative baseline. Again, so let's look at the results. Now we get a pH of 7.15. Whoa. 7.15? Why is this patient acidotic? I don't know. Let's see. Your CO2 is 25. Didn't see that coming either. Your PaO2 is 35 and your bicarb is 32. You got a saturation of 75%. Now, what are we going to do here? What is your recommendation? You're going to provide supplemental oxygen? Well, PaO2 says 35. Yeah, but our saturation says 98%. That's a discrepancy. That right there doesn't match up. Also, the patient presentation doesn't match a blood gas that appears to be severely acidotic. Another thing that's weird about this is, how did we get a pH of 7.15 when we have a decreased CO2 and an increased bicarb? If you have a high bicarb, that should pull the pH up. If you have a decreased CO2, that should push the pH up. And so we've got blood gas here that doesn't make any sense. You can't interpret that blood gas. Why? Because it's a bad blood gas. So do you think we got venous blood this time? No, because it's bright red and filled quickly. So that tells us we got an accurate arterial sample, but it didn't read correctly. Now the answer is, let's recalibrate the analyzer. Now when we look at this one, what we see is that we're drawing arterial blood gas on a 64-year-old male with a history of chronic hypercapnia. Make note of that. Anytime you read that, chronic hypercapnia, that tells you this person has some sort of cardiopulmonary disorder that causes them to live with a higher CO2 than normal. You observe the dark blood quickly filling. So we haven't seen this version of this yet, have we? We saw dark blood filling slowly. We saw bright red blood filling quickly, and now we have a dark blood quickly filling the syringe. So we've got three different variations here. That's all telling us something different. Patients in mild to moderate respiratory distress, we're in the tripod position. All of this are clues, right? Patient is tachypnic and tachycardic. You got an SpO2 of 78% on room air. Here's your blood gas results: 7.48, CO2 of 49, PaO2 of 48, bicarb of 34, saturation 76%. Now all of this I can get down with. I can, okay, the bicarb is elevated. I knew that was going to be the case because the patient lives with chronic hypercapnia. So that means the bicarb elevates to compensate for that high CO2. So why are we alkalotic here? And that is because this person is hyperventilating. Now I put an arrow down next to the CO2 and you're thinking, wait, CO2 of 49, that's elevated. It is elevated. But in this scenario, for this patient, that is a decreased CO2. This patient is hyperventilating. Why? Because they are hypoxemic, okay? And so we realize that that's what's going on here. So what would we do for this patient? Would you give albuterol? Did that say anything about wheezing or bronchospasm or bronchoconstriction? It did not give albuterol. You want to redraw the sample because you think it's venous? No, because it filled quickly and the dark blood matches the presentation of the patient who is hypoxemic. And so this is all making sense. The blood gas makes sense, so it's not an analyzer problem. And here we see that the correct answer is to provide this patient with supplemental oxygen. This is a COPD patient who needs some oxygen. And that's what we would do to treat this patient. So that is how you use the clues in the scenarios to put the whole picture together. You can't just look at the ABG itself and go, that is what's happening here, to be able to figure out the answer. When you're differentiating between arterial versus venous blood gas values, pay attention to the overall clues in the stem of the question, or even at the bedside while you're taking care of patients out there in the hospital or clinical care setting. So, hey, I'm Respiratory Coach. Thanks for watching. Come follow me on all the socials. If you haven't checked out The Shift yet, check it out. The very first respiratory care reality show. It's out here, right here on this YouTube channel. Check that out. And don't forget about respiratorycoach.com. The tools you're looking for to help you pass those credentialing exams, they're right there. Hey, remember, average is easy. Don't be it.